Hey folks, Fernando doing another video for the More Survivalists and continuing with the topic of the previous video regarding EDC, though in this case talking about what I took for this day hike that we did this weekend with my family. Not a big deal, just a short day hike. It was about 4 hours, give or take, 20,000 steps. I think it's a little bit over 8 miles. 8.5 miles if I remember correctly. Anyway, 8 miles, but this is in very rough terrain. This is it's listed as an intermediate hiking trail. So it got very narrow at times, very narrow, like just like less than half a meter, and cliff on one side, stone wall on the other, and you have to be a little bit careful because you could get hurt. You could hurt yourself quite a bit if you're not paying attention. Anyway, I took, of course, the EDC that I just explained in the previous video. I had my multi-tool, my knife, flashlight, the rest of the stuff. One of the things that was super useful was the hat and glasses, because we went with my wife and kids, so an adult, a teenager, and a 4-year-old little boy. The 4-year-old little boy surprised us by how much he was able to walk. I mean, it's amazing. But these things you have to try yourself. So 20,000 steps, 8 miles, that's a decent distance. That's a distance that most adults cannot walk because they're just not fit enough to do that. Beyond the distance, we're looking at a mountain trail considered intermediate, which means that most of it was loose rock on top of the cut mountain, which you were constantly tripping and falling all the time. It was very complicated. Each and every step you took, you had to be certain of it because there was a good chance there was like marbles on a floor. It was just rolling all the time. I fell, my wife fell, my kids fell. We all fell at one point or another. So if you combine that with how tired you are and how some areas can be dangerous, it's no joke. Now that I'm thinking about it, taking a 4-year-old to that, I made the call and I'm happy with it. I'm okay. In fact, he was asking me today, hey, when are we going again? So yes, this is the kind of thing that, besides the gear and stuff, these are the little life lessons that we have to teach our kids. And you have to see how far they can go. Be very careful, very, very careful with not doing this bullshit, idiotic thing of, I want my boys to be tough. No, your 4-year-old does not need to be tough. Your 5-year-old does not need to be tough. Whenever he's tired, whenever he wants to be picked up, you should be fit enough to pick up your son and keep on walking with him. So this was a test for me as well. That's what I did. Every time he was feeling a little bit more tired, and I would ask him frequently, hey, how you doing, little guy? Are you okay? Are you tired? Oh, yes, I'm a little bit tired. Okay, without even asking, I would just pick him up and carry him a little bit. Just a little bit so that he regains his strength, a bit of water, and we continue walking. We didn't stop nearly at all. We just stopped a couple of times for a few minutes. A couple of reasons for that. We just didn't want to lose time. We didn't want to get cold. And once your body cools down, it's harder to get back walking. And yeah, that would be the main reasons. And the idea of walking at a very slow pace. So we walked at this pace that the slowest member of our group, meaning my 4-year-old son, could manage. So we were walking, still actually, now that I think of it, we did quite fast though. So we were walking mostly at his pace, and whenever he was tired, I picked him up and tried to keep on with that space because of course I'm carrying a little person, and that just slows you down a little bit as well. At one point, I tripped with him and fell. I put my arm so as to keep him from getting hurt, and he was right on. I fell on top of him, but I stopped my own weight with my arm as I fell, and I held his head with my other hand. So I honestly thought I broke my arm when I fall like that. I heard the rock like crack. I thought, yeah, okay, there goes my arm. I can still walk. I'm walking back to the car with a broken arm. That's gonna be fun. No, it was just a nice big old bruise, and it's not even looking all that bad because it hit the bone there, so I have like a nice a nice blue bruise, but other than that, nothing. And he was completely unharmed at all. So I just hold him as I fell, held his head, and he was like, "Oh, you're okay." But when I got up, I scratched my knee, and he saw that I was bleeding. And we were talking about this with Matt this weekend, and he was, "Oh, Dad, you're bleeding. Does that hurt?" I said, "No, it doesn't. I mean, it really didn't." But besides that, all of these little scraps and things and bruises, you have to teach your kids that if it's not something serious, then it's no big deal. This is where the lessons that you transmit to your kids come into play. Oh, so it's not the end of the world if you're cut a little bit and you're bleeding a little bit. And there was a little bit of a trickle of blood. And for him, it was a lot of blood. I told him, "No, it's just a little bit of blood." And he said, "No, that's a lot of blood." And I told him, "No, it really isn't. It's just a bit. It's just some. I'm okay. We can keep on walking. I'm not hurt at all. We're fine." One of the other things, glasses and the baseball cap, so as to protect your eyes. In many of these areas, there were just bush and stuff that would get on your face. And as I was picking him up and walking with him, holding him in my arms, I just couldn't use as effectively my hand to move away branches and twigs and that stuff. So this was a good combo so as to protect your face. It's not just about sun. It's not just about wind. It's a way in which you protect your face when branches and leaves and thorns could get in the way, right? So besides that, what I took with me, and because this is a trail I've done before, not this exact same one, there was a little variation there, but I had done this. I had done actually a much longer route with my oldest kids, but because I kind of knew that it was a little bit complicated, I decided to go very lightweight. So instead of taking a big pack with a lot of crap that I don't really need, I went with a super minimalistic approach. This is one of these little bags with just one single strap, and that's it. What I took was the following: just a first aid kit, with hemostatic gauze, tourniquet, and one of these little boo-boo kits with with band-aids and little else, just ibuprofen, and just very minimalistic first aid kit, a radio, and some Kleenex, and one of these little radios, and then that's basically what I had there. A bottle of water and a Glock knife, very lightweight Glock knife. Yes, this is a little bit of a setup that I made myself with paracord, but very light knife, yet mostly like a prying, smashing tool, and water. This is what I use, and I drank most of it through the trip. Gave a little bit to my wife, I think, and washed my hands on some, and I still had a bit of water when we made it back to the car, and took a last sip, and basically drank the last of it. But this was enough. You don't need a whole lot of water. It's a little bit larger than the one that I mentioned from IKEA, but this is what I had here. That's it. And a second radio just in case I had to give it to someone else. I think my kids had their own as well, but just a spare. It could have gone without that anyway. And that is all I had. You don't need these huge packs. One of these little, notebook that I did myself, just a piece of paper in half, and a couple of staples, and that's it. Pen, and yeah, that's all we took. Sometimes I see these idiotic huge bags that I know people don't see because no one carries around 20 pounds of crap with you all day. That just isn't something that people do. But besides that, there's many occasions when you want to go fast, when you want to be lightweight, when you want to be more agile. Maybe you're carrying someone. So all of that should be put into the equation. I see so many of these bullshit bug out bags that I know that they're not carrying. I know that they probably never took even to a single day hike. If you had done that, you probably would dump half of the stuff in it. So try your stuff, know what works, and if it's really something that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, sure, there's things you carry with you for emergencies, like your first aid kit. Yes, you want to have that in spite of whatever, because because you don't know. Now, carrying food for a day hike, you gotta be kidding me. You don't need in a little trip like that. Sure, if someone takes a few snacks and so on, that's great. We actually took some little chips and something like that, a little bit of candy and something salty. But the idea that you actually need food for walking during the day, doesn't make any sense. You're actually feeling a lot better and lighter when you're not eating. And even drinking water. Sometimes I've had comments from people, you don't know what you're talking about. You need 5 gallons of water in my desert and blah, blah, blah. Dude, you don't go to the desert, you don't hike, you have no clue what you're talking about. And yes, there's environments where you need a lot of water. Now, for simple day hikes, for walking, and looking at this from the perspective of survival and preparedness, if this is the bag I'm gonna be having, if I ever have to walk back home from the office and the office is 5 miles away, 10 miles away, dude, get off your ass, walk a little bit, and understand how much distance you can cover. If you're telling me that because you have to walk 20 miles, you have to camp 3 times and go fishing, I don't even know what to tell you. You obviously, and I've read stuff like this from people that thought they knew what they were saying. They obviously had never tried it. Try it out. Do it yourself. It's not always the same. For example, my wife, she wants to walk every day her 10,000 steps, because of a health thing. And she was telling me, it's completely different walking 8 miles in level terrain than it is walking uphill when it's all loose stone that you're stepping in all the time. And you actually have to verify each and every step you take because it's probably going to be giving under your weight as soon as you put some weight on it. And it's going to be rolling under your feet and you're going to be falling head first forward. All of these things, you want to try it out. Now, this is not the kind of route or trail you take when you're evacuating or leaving a dangerous place, at least not for most people in pretty much 99.99% of the environments that most human beings find themselves in. This is a kind of trail you look for on purpose yourself because you want to challenge yourself, because you want to be closer to nature. It's not something that, oh yes, if I ever have to bug out, I'll have to go through the intermediate trail up in a mountain. Probably is going to be walking on the sidewalk. So do both things. Understand, and even better, give it a try. If you're looking at bugging out from one place to the other and you're looking at walking a certain distance, actually walk that distance. There's no law against walking from one point to the other. You can do that. You can stop at different places. Predetermine that. If you're looking at walking back home from work, if there's an EMP, right, and you have to walk 10 miles, actually give it a try once. Walk those 10 miles and see how that goes for you. If there's places where it's a little bit more complicated terrain, if there's some issues that you were not addressing or recognizing without trying it, you actually have to try these things, okay? That's basically it. One last thing, the watch did come in handy once because of the compass. There was a moment where, trees and you didn't see all that well, and I just want to verify that we were going in the right direction. The compass in the watch actually came in handy. I wasn't lost, we were all fine, but it's definitely one of those tools that you want to have. A compass has to have a basic idea of, are we walking in the right direction or not? Well, you want to have a compass for that, especially when there's trees around you and you cannot check with the sun. Little things. A knife, yes, I had my Glock knife, I had my folding knife. It had gotten a little bit later. If we had like an hour or more so, I could have used a flashlight so as to find our way out of there. Little things that the more you try these things out, the more you go out and test yourself and your family group, right, as we did, the more you learn and you know what's needed and what's not. And besides that, there's moments for great lessons for your kids as well. Guys, it's going to be all. If you're interested in this, street survival skills, surviving economic collapse, see you on the next video. Take care.